Right now, let's kind of pivot to talking about the SAG-AFTRA strike, right? We have the historic SAG-AFTRA WGA joint strike, the first one since 1960, is happening right now. It's a situation that I feel like it's still in the process of getting worse before it's going to get better, because before, when the negotiations were going on, basically what we were told, was that they won't be talking to the media. Neither side, AMPTP or SAG-AFTRA, will be talking to the media while negotiations were ongoing, which is perfectly fine. You don't want to negotiate in the public eye, and you don't want to, because either side will then try to play the public, to their side and get the public opinion on their side. So where we are at now, though, with the strike ongoing, is it seems like that is exactly what's happening. This is playing out in the public eye. What do you think is going on at this point? Where is SAG-AFTRA at? And being boots on the ground in LA, what is the situation like with the strike?
Right now, I have to strike next week. I have already talked to friends. I haven't been out there. I need to go to the picket lines. It's like not only sort of an ethical and a moral thing, but just like to stand by my fellow actors and just really make sure that I'm doing my part, right? Like, it's a crazy space to be in. You're seeing the AMPTP and SAG going back and forth online. They said that they weren't going to talk about it, and now they're talking about it. There's no real movements. I actually talked to a writer friend of mine, and she was like, the WGA is not going to get any further in negotiations until SAG has finalized their all the decisions, which is crazy to me because the WGA has been striking, and you would think that the AMPTP would really want to just like make the writers happy at this point. But I guess WGA is holding out to see what SAG gets and then change their negotiations. So there's a lot up in the air. I don't know what's going to happen right now. I feel like everything that SAG is arguing for is like a good thing to argue for. And that's where I'm at. I'm standing with the people. I hope that we get everything and all that we need, because at the end of the day, like, it's necessary in order to move forward.
So as far as the SAG-AFTRA strike goes, right now we've had this article that I read this on Deadline. I'm sure other sites are talking about it too. The AMPTP put out this document talking about, well, look, the SAG-AFTRA also put out a document, I think it was a week or so ago, basically talking about, hey, this is what we had asked for. This is where we had disagreements. And then, this is what the studios refused to give us. And so the AMPTP, the producer side, basically the studio representatives, they put out a document just now where they basically said, look, we were kind of misrepresented in that statement from SAG-AFTRA earlier. And so we want to clarify a few things. And so that has included their stance on AI and how, digital replicas are background actors, things of that nature. Also in residuals and like wage increases that they're proposed. They've mentioned how in some areas, they didn't have an agreement, but they were working towards it and more work has to be done. So they've admitted to that in some areas. They've said that, some things regarding the AI side of the conversation were misrepresented by SAG-AFTRA. Did you have a chance to kind of read into this a little bit? Like, what do you think? Because to me, it means this is kind of just now out in the open that they're fighting the fight. It's negotiating in the public eye.
And the SAG has already responded again, saying like, we will not respond to AMPTP's actual rebuttal until we have time to fully look at the document, because apparently the document is crazy long, which I think on SAG's end, that's really smart. I think it's really easy to fire off these comments, right? Because it's not like people are like sitting down to, interview these people. They're taking these quotes from situational things. People are just saying stuff. So I think it's really, really smart of SAG to just be like, we're not issuing an actual response to this right now. But what they did say was everything we've released is fully accurate and there are no discrepancies. We have done our best to make sure that it's only accurate information going out. So I think AMPTP is really just trying to start a little war in the public. That's kind of what it seems like, right? Like,
I feel like this is a he said, she said, and then
yeah,
because when the negotiations were going on, they were like they had agreed we are not going to discuss our negotiations in the public
yeah.
eye. And that's usually how negotiations go. You don't want to kind of, toss your dirty laundry out in front of the world for them to see.
Well, because it also
So
affects negotiations 1000% because of public policy,
public opinion, yeah, exactly. And but now it seems like because they're on strike and nobody's at the table discussing this stuff, they're just now kind of throwing all that dirty laundry out into the open and saying, well, look, this is what our version of this went like, and that's what their version went like. I do see some of what they have said here. Like, for example, ultimately, when you look at one of the biggest things that they disagree on here, the AMPTP and SAG-AFTRA, and even the WGA, right? It's AI. Like AI is a big part of what's holding us back from any deal. The residual increases and all those things are, part of the process, but those have been part of previous negotiations. Wage increases, working conditions, the amount of hours you can spend on set, all of those things, pension contributions, those are all, none of those things are new per se. And so I don't think those would be like deal breakers. We would eventually kind of figure out the right numbers for everybody. People can compromise. We have done that before. Where I think we're really in new territory is the AI part. And ultimately, you can go on the deadline, you can read this 23-page AMPTP document. And in the deadline article, they also link you to the SAG-AFTRA document from a couple of weeks ago. But to just kind of summarize, I think where we are at here is AMPTP sees that AI as an inevitability, and so they want to do what they feel is best in the studio's interest to establish rules for AI's use and then leave it open for that to evolve down the road. Whereas and again, this is my opinion based on what I am reading and how I'm interpreting it. So for everybody that's out, you're welcome to read all of this and then make your own opinion on this. But studios see this as a necessary evil because, AI is here to stay. AI is not going anywhere. And SAG-AFTRA, I don't think is necessarily denying that, but I think SAG-AFTRA, what they are emphasizing here is the slippery slope argument. The slippery slope, basically, if we're going to deal with AI, we need to deal with it in the most comprehensive way imaginable. So there is no open-endedness to it. There is no way for either side to find some sort of loophole to exploit down the road, because we know in business, and especially in a cutthroat business like Hollywood, if there's a loophole, if there's a way that somebody can get away with something, especially when it involves paying less money, they're going to do that. And I think that's where really there's disagreements, is that the studios are saying this is a necessary evil. We're willing to put some rules forward, and we're willing to see where this goes and evolves over time. And SAG-AFTRA is like, okay, but you clearly are not doing enough due diligence here to put enough of a framework around this, that we are protecting the likenesses of our members who are ultimately going to be affected by this. The studio executives' faces are not in the movies and on the posters and the trailers. It's our members, our actors.
Have you seen the new season of Black Mirror?
I've actually seen parts of it, and I saw the trailer, but the Selma Hayek episode, right? Is that what the one you're talking about?
Yeah. It is so creepy accurate about what what the SAG is scared of. And I actually just did this digital likeness job for ESPN, right? But I don't know what it's going into. I sold them my digital likeness. It's only available for this amount of time once they start using it. But I don't know what game it's going to be in. I don't know where it's going. I don't know what character I'm playing. My likeness, my digital likeness, is going into a database where it will sit and be stored until some video game developer is like, I want her in my video game. I will be eventually in some sort of video game. I don't know when, I don't know where, I don't know why, I don't know what character. That's a little worrisome, right? But this is like the beginnings of that digital likeness situation. And when you look at Black Mirror, that episode really plays it out really well. There right now is no information. People are not required to provide me with information. I either choose to take the job or I don't do the job. As far as selling my facial likeness to some disembodied character that I have no idea about, right? And when I get a script, I get to okay the script. I get to decide whether or not I want to play this character, and I sign a contract and I do this, and I have influence over how I play the character. I have influence sometimes even on lines in the script, if based off of like what kind of job it is. Like,
Yeah.
it's freaky to know that they're trying to open up the door to more of that without wanting to give us more information on the front end.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I think like where the disagreements right now are ultimately again where the studios are like, well, we're willing to put some framework around it, but SAG-AFTRA feels like there's not enough being offered here.
yeah.
If you're gonna go down that road, then we need to really set some boundaries and really set some very specific, rules in place so that nobody gets exploited. And to be completely fair, I think SAG-AFTRA has more to worry about because it's their members who would probably suffer the most in case somebody somewhere decides to
Also, as
exploit
digital likenesses go,
likeness.
like financially on that side of it, like what you pay to have my likeness, you should also pay me residuals for every time it's used. Where I also feel like they might not be as forthcoming with that. They want to pay on the front end, like, no, we'll pay for your likeness. Okay, but you still have to pay residuals every time you use my likeness. Or like, if you use my likeness in different movies, that should be 2 different fees. Like so there's a lot to be
absolutely
reframed.
And in that document from the AMPTP, they mentioned like, hey, look, obtaining a consent for every time a likeness is used somewhere beyond the original project that you signed, that has to be part of the process, that they would bargain a new rate or compensation at that point in time. But yeah, it doesn't really mention a lot about residuals, or if it does, I haven't had a chance to really be able to kind of dig into details. So somebody else who has done all the reading, I'm sure, let us know in the comments what you found. But definitely, I think that's part of the slippery slope argument that we could end up in a situation where, so your likeness was used in something and maybe you got paid up front, but then, where's the residuals? And then there's the business side of it. So I think just looking at it from the other side, the studios could say, well, we use your likeness on a separate project and you got paid for that, but we can't pay you residuals because you didn't actually do any extra work. We did the work and kind of use your likeness. But that, even if you put that argument aside, there's the business sense. Like, it wouldn't make a lot of business sense when this is the other side of one of the other issues in this is streaming, and residuals for streaming is a similar situation where I don't think studios are making enough money with this operating model to be able to even give the kind of residuals that they used to be able to do in like cable television era when you had advertising everywhere. So they were making enough money from the broadcast, and the syndication was a big part of how the actors got residuals. I think now with streaming, it's just they're not making, like, where's the money going to come from for them to give residuals, because they're just not making as much money or from advertisers. So I think ultimately we either are going to end up in a situation where advertising will be as ubiquitous in streaming as it was in cable and still is in cable, or we're going to need to figure out some other financial structure as to how these things are budgeted and made and distributed. I also think that this ties into the theatrical window. The shortening of the theatrical window has affected, I think, a lot of movies' box office, because people are like, well, I can just wait 3 months and it's going to be on Disney Plus. Back in the day, 3 months after the movie came out, it may only just come out on digital, and you either rent it or you buy it, and then 2-3 months after that, it would go on some premium streaming service that you may not have, and then it may come to the streaming service you have, and then maybe a year after the movie came out.
It's actually where Netflix first got their start. Remember when Netflix, literally you had to pick out, like, you paid a monthly thing and then you picked out like one movie, and then you only got another movie when you returned that movie, and they charged you fees just like Blockbuster did if you went over your movie. We had a Netflix subscription early because it was like right when Blockbuster was sort of like petering out, and we wanted a place where we could just go rent a movie that was easy peasy. So, I mean, I think it's definitely going to change the framework of Hollywood as a whole.
Yeah,
but it needs to happen.
I mean, George Clooney said it. I think there was a social media. I think it was on Instagram that I saw somebody post about this, and I forget the exact nature of the quote, but George Clooney basically said, and he's not the only one. There's a lot of other people, actors, producers, who have said that these are landmark times in terms of like
Yeah.
Hollywood. The way we have been operating is not sustainable, and so moving forward, these strikes, in order for them to resolve these strikes, and the actor strikes are having a much bigger immediate impact on the studio's bottom line, especially if they can't release movies like Dune Part Two and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. That's just the start of how this these strikes are actually affecting the bottom lines and the profitability of studios, not just in the short term but in the long term. So we need to change what we're doing. And yeah, like George Clooney and many actors have said, the change from here has to be a sea change. Like the way we do business, the way Hollywood operates, what Hollywood is, even in terms of like a source of storytelling, it has to be different because it's not as equitable as it needs to be, so that everybody, and on many levels, like the SAG-AFTRA and the WGA just want their members to be able to pay their basic living wages so that they can pay their bills and they can have a normal life.
A life.
No,
A life.
nobody's looking for like millions of dollars for doing the work they were previously getting nowhere close to that. I think it's just
Yeah.
there's a lot of basic if the system has so much inequality that the people on the top are making hundreds of millions of dollars and the people at the very bottom can't even pay the rent or put food on their table.
Yeah.
That's clearly very inequitable, and we need to change that. And I sincerely hope that the strikes that are ongoing will make that change. Hopefully, before people start to lose their houses or can't pay their bills,
Yeah.
and it's getting rough really fast. And I think the actor strike is going to push the studios a lot more than the WGA, because they can't have the excuse of we have scripts in the bank now, stuff like that. Like actors can't do anything. There's no Comic-Con, there's no movie promotions, and that has a significant impact on movies. So
On
hopefully,
the whole, yeah.
yeah, hopefully we'll get back on track. We're going to be, we've been doing coverage of the SAG-AFTRA strike and the WGA strike every week. We're going to keep doing that here. So keep coming back, checking in, and we'll keep talking about the latest developments. We'll give you our insight. You are welcome to leave us a comment below about what you think about the strike. If you're out there on the picket lines, stay hydrated, stay safe, and of course, let us know how things are going for you. And then if you like what we are talking about, then you can hit the like button and then hit subscribe for more content like this.